Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
We're bringing you issue 21 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine today. This came with the second half of the Marshcrawla Sloggoth for the Kruleboyz, so you can see that into today's game, where we'll be having our first battle on the Realm of Shadows. Looking through the issue first up we have a practical guide to magic. I guess this is similar to our Book of the Beast. This is a guide to magic written in universe by Alvius Foy there in the picture, presumably that's him. It's an introduction to the magic of the mortal realms, although even the most skillful wizards might have to resort to uncouth methods like hitting each other with swords, as you can see down the bottom there. And this is just an introduction to the magic of the mortal realms, as I said. The Collegiate Arcane, which is the sort of the collective arcane college that all humans of good standing would go to. And though magic may seem intimidating, if you learn to master it, possibly you can and practice it the proper way, it's perfectly safe. Then we had the build guide for the Sloggoth in the previous issue, but we do have one here just going over the various techniques and various things you would use while building models. So this is the various symbols that Games Workshop use in their build guides, going over like when to use glue, showing off optional build, what size base the model should be on, and it goes over things you've seen up to this point, like how each part of the kit is numbered. Make sure you just follow everything step by step, clip off the correct pieces and so on. And then the next two pages cover how to use the clippers and the mold line remover, which if you subscribed you should have both of these. So for the clippers, often it's better to clip off a big chunk of sprue and then narrow that down, and then you can use the mold line remover or a hobby knife to cut away the rest, and being careful around fragile parts and any extra tabs which are used for things like bowstrings to keep them straight while they're in the mold. And then the mold line remover, as you expect, is for you to remove mold lines, and there's several different ways to use it. And then we have push fit models. Again, be careful when applying pressure so you don't bend anything or snap anything. And sometimes when they have pegs that don't quite fit together, you can use a mold line remover to remove some of the plastic and get a nicer fit. Then using plastic glue. Plastic glue is different to super glue in that it actually melts the plastic together. So you do need to be a bit careful with it. Don't get it in places where you don't want it to go. If you use too much of it can damage the detail of a model. And the Games Workshop one comes with this metal nozzle, which does have a tendency to clog up, so it's probably worth getting some very thin wire in case that happens. And again, be careful with the amount of glue you're using. And also it notes, so you can see an example how in the build guides it actually gives you an idea of where to apply the glue as well. And finally, if you do get excessive glue on the model, you can clean it up with a bit of towel, or you can sort of scrape away at the model where the glue is and possibly join things up. But there may be times you actually want to use a bit too much glue, in which case you can actually use the plastic glue to fill gaps. So here we have a Praetor's cloak that has two halves. You can apply a lot of glue over the edge, and then if you really push the pieces together, you can get a really nice snug fit with no gaps, or you can use the glue to melt a bit of the plastic and then use the mold line remover to file down where the glue is melted and then get a nice clean join. But now we have the painting guide for the Sloggoth. It shows you the different sub-assemblies, usually of the Sloggoth with the Howdah and then the three grots. Starting off undercoating the Sloggoth and the Howdah with Catachan flesh, and obviously all the grots with Orruk flesh. It then tells you to paint the Sloggoth again, but with Wraithbone. I'm not really sure why you need that extra step. Why you wouldn't just start with Wraithbone, I guess, if you're worried about getting it on the Howdah or something. I'm not entirely sure. But other than that, it's pretty much as you'd expect from the other Kruleboyz. You've got Wraithbone for various cloth and straps and nets. A bit of Abaddon black on some of the leather parts just to break up all the brown. Lead belcher for all the metal parts, Catachan flesh on any wood you've missed, like the haft of the net or the grabber if you've got those. And there's a little pile of treasure on the Howdah, which you obviously need to paint in nice shiny gold. So there, you can see it up to this point. And as it notes, put the grots on with blue tack if you want to use them in the game, but then they'll let you take them off because they're obviously not finished yet. And this issue also came with a fold-out, because we're moving into the Realm of Shadow now, so fittingly we have the fold-out showing a map of the Realm of Shadow. As you might expect of its name, it is permanently engulfed in darkness. In fact, the realm itself seems to play tricks on inhabitants, so massive fortresses might look like a mere cliff face. It seems like the wind is mocking whispers and laughter. So as you might imagine, this is the sort of realm that favours armies that like to do guerrilla raids or ambushes. And you can see some of the major places, notably are places like Hagnar, the seat of Morathi, who we'll learn about in a bit, and Mistwarven, which we've learned about before. It's one of the cities of Sigmar inhabited by various elves of ill repute. And on the other side, we have a showcase of some of the armies and factions that occupy Ulgu, the Realm of Shadow. And you can see a little bit, if you squint hard enough, a bit of a showcase of some of the models. So in the centre there, we have Morathi, the Shadow Queen of the Daughters of Cain, who are a sort of mystical witch-like cult that go out and gather sacrifices for their various blood rituals. And fortunately, more due to the fact that they hate chaos, they are actually aligned with the forces of Sigmar. So they are part of the good guys, technically. In the top left, we have the clans Eshin, who are the Skaven, the Ratmen. Clan Eshin specialises in stealth and assassination, so you can see our Death Master there. We have the Idoneth Deepkin, who prowl the seas. These sort of elves that live under the waters and raid the coastlines. Even though, once again, they are also aligned with Sigmar, they sometimes kidnap Sigmar's faithful for their own various rituals as well. In the top right, we have the Hedonites of Slaanesh. These are the various mortal followers and some demons who are dedicated to the Chaos God Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure and Excess. And the bottom right with the Darkling Covens. These are elves who occupy Misthaven and other cities, who are allied with Sigmar, but some would doubt their loyalty. And although even though they are elves, they're not aligned with Morathi necessarily either. But with that little look over all the lore and the issue, I can hand you over to Will, and he'll take us into today's game.
So as was explained in the previous issue, from this issue onwards we're now going to be introducing the core rules of Age of Sigmar, which are going to build upon the basic rules that we've learned up until this point. In every case, if the core rules contradict the basic rules, then they supersede them. So there are some things that were simplified in the basic rules, they're now going to be based with their full rules. And there's also a little bit about using Stormbringer in the Age of Sigmar, that these rules do let you play games in Stormbringer and against other people who might have a Stormbringer collection, but they also provide you the basis for moving into the wider game as well. And so we've got the first page of the core rules here, which just introduces some core concepts, as it says. The sidebar down the left mentions that some things are written in rules bold, which denotes key terms that will appear throughout the rules. There's also a bit about using different sections. Each section in the rules is numbered, so they're easy to find. And in the core concepts, it talks about factions, battle tomes, and battle packs, which factions is relevant, battle tomes and battle packs won't be right now. Models is just defined here, and the definition of a friendly and an enemy model, and what it means when a model is removed from play, units, and war scrolls. All of these things we've seen before are fairly self-explanatory, and there's also even a picture of a model there. And then we have the War Scroll for the Marshcrawla Sloggoth. It has a 6-inch move, 12 wounds, a save of 4+, and bravery of 5. It is armed with the catching nets and snatcher sticks of the crew, which have a 2-inch range, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, no rend, 1 damage. And the Sloggoth Raking Claws are a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, that hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend -1, 2 damage. It has a Snatcher crew, who have a rule rather like the Cunning crew. They can snatch enemy models, but it's not quite as good. You just roll a dice at the end of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy model within 2 inches, and if the roll is twice or more its wounds characteristic, then that model is just slain. The Crew Drummer is, I think, the main reason you would use the Marshcrawla Sloggoth. All friendly units wholly within 18 get +1 to hit with all their melee attacks. And finally, it also regenerates, so in your hero phase you can roll a dice. On a 4+, it will heal D3 wounds that it's lost already. And looking at its keywords, the key thing to note is it does not have although it is a Kruleboyz unit, it does not have the Auric keyword, so it won't be able to benefit from certain rules. And tutorial on the back first for the Snatcher crew, so that's the same way as it works with the Cunning crew. And then the Drummer, and it is important to note that the unit has to be wholly within 18 inches, which means all parts of every model in the unit have to be within 18 inches of the Sloggoth for them to benefit from that rule. And then we're on to our game for this issue, Pits of Peril. So in this issue we're actually moving to our new battle mat and a new realm, the Realm of Shadow, Ulgu, where both the Stormcast Eternals and the Kruleboyz have discovered a buried realm gate which might allow them to traverse great distances. Both are seeking to secure it. So the models that we've got here for the Alliance of Order, we've got Knight Arcanum, Gardus Steel Soul, and 5 Vindictors. Against the Alliance of Destruction, we've got the Swampcrawler Shaman, the Marshcrawla Sloggoth, and 10 Gut Rippers. And here is our battle mat. So we're using the new Ulgu side of the battle mat. The Order territory is on the left and the Destruction territory on the right along the short edges, about a quarter of a way across. And we deploy as we've learnt before, taking it in turns and then deploying some scenery once we've finished deploying our models. And the objective in this game is to score victory points, which are quite a common way of determining who has won a game. In this game we gain victory points at the end of the 5th battle round, scoring 1 point for each of our units in the opponent's territory, and 1 point for each enemy unit that has been slain. Player with most points at the end is the winner, or it's a draw if it's the same. Game will last for 5 battle rounds as previously. And there's also a special rule called All-Consuming Shadows. Due to the nature creature of the Realm of Shadow. During the first and second battle round, all units subtract 1 from their hit rolls. But from the third battle round onwards, things are back to normal. So we'll get the new board set up and our models deployed and show you all of that, and then get into the game. There you can see our new Realm of Shadow battle mat in all its glory. Deployed the models and some terrain. So my Stormcast army, we've got Gardus on the right flank, and the Vindictors in the middle, and the Nartarcanum on the left flank.
And for my Kruleboyz, I've got the Gut Rippers forming the front row with the Marshcrawla off to the side, and then Gonrog the Great staying at the back so he doesn't get engaged straight away this time.
So we're just rolling off to see who gets priority in the first battle round. I've won, and I think I will make the Kruleboyz go first, because I don't think there's any benefit me going first at this point.
Yeah, and my dirty trick is going to be Noisy Racket.
So we'll be on to Kruleboyz, turn 1.
So, going to start off with spellcasting. I'm going to try and use Summon Boggy Mist. I think there's a casting value of 6. Well, an 11's definitely enough.
Well, I'll try and unbind, needing a 12. Nope. And for the first time, we should have a snazzy overlay over the video, which will keep track of victory points and similar things. Technically, all victory points are scored at the end of the game in this one, but we'll put them up as soon as the unit's destroyed, and it also lets us keep a track of other things like the dirty tricks.
So Gonrog's also going to give the Gut Rippers a poison, and then we're just going to move up fairly normally, keep the Shaman tucked in at the back. Might get charged by the Stormcast, but hopefully the Boggy Mist should slow them down.
But there's no ranged weapons in the Kruleboyz force, and not going to any charges, so beyond Stormcast turn. We'll start off by trying to cast Arcane Bolt, needing a 5, getting it with a 10.
Try and unbind. Nope.
We've still got the basic version of Arcane Bolt, which just does D3 mortal wounds to the Gut Rippers, and kills them. And then everything's just going to shuffle sideways, not going to get too far forward at this point, because I've got a penalty to my charges from Boggy Mist, which are already quite long anyway, and everybody's still -1 to hit because of the shadows and mist and everything, so I'm not going to engage too soon, and Gardus is not in range to use his Cloak of Hammers either, so that'll actually be the end of the battle round. But the Gut Rippers do have to take a Battle Shock test in the Battle Shock phase, because they did lose a model.
Bravery 5, so 4 + 1 is 5, we're fine.
But that brings us to the new battle round, so we're rolling off the priority again. Well, I've won again, and I'm going to make the Kruleboyz go first once again, because they've still got a reasonably long charge, and the Sloggoth is kind of out of position. So on to Kruleboyz turn 2.
Gonrog's going to try and cast Mystic Shield, needing 5, gets it with a 9.
Try and unbind. Nope.
So I'll put that on the Gut Rippers. So we're just going to move sort of laterally, the Gut Rippers leaving a space between them and the dragon skeleton, whatever it is, so the Sloggoth can fit through that gap. Going to be some longish charges, but I reckon it's worth a shot. I'll start with the Gut Rippers. They get 3, that's definitely not enough. Yeah, and I think I won't charge the Sloggoth on its own, because it probably won't kill all the Vindictors, and it will just get mushed by all the heroes next turn, so we'll leave it at that.
So that's where we are at the end of Kruleboyz turn 2, on to Stormcast turn 2. I shall try and cast Arcane Bolt again, getting it with an 8.
Try and unbind. Nope, not with a 7.
So another D3 mortal wounds to the Gut Rippers, another one dead. Then everyone will move forward like this, and then in the shooting phase, Gardus is going to throw his hammers at the Gut Rippers. D3 times, D6 times for 5, which hit on 4s because it's still shadowy. Oh, 4 hit anyway. And wound on 3s. Oh, just 1.
And we're on a 5+, because we've got Mystic Shield, and -1 red. Nope, Gut Ripper takes a wound.
Then we're on to the charge phase. I'm going to do the Vindictors first. No point using Scare Shields, because everybody's already got -1 to hit, and you can't have more than -1 to hit overall. So their charge is a 3. I think that's in, but, well, 3 inches is just enough to get the front one within half an inch, but it's not really what I was hoping for. I wanted them to go round further. Anyway, we'll move on to Gardus Steel Soul, and he will use his Saintly Assault ability. So he can re-roll this charge roll if necessary. I think a 7 is good though. So he'll just go to there to block off the Sloggoth getting to the Vindictors, but I will pick the Vindictors to fight first. So they're able to all pile in to be in range of the Gut Rippers, and then we have 11 attacks to hit on 4s because it's shadowy, but 6s do a mortal wound. We have 2 mortal wounds and 1 regular hit, which wounds on a 3, that does.
5+ save. Nope.
So 3 wounds overall.
I'll pick the Gut Rippers to go, and I think they'll all go for the Vindictors, because if they kill Gardus, he'll probably still get to fight, and Gardus can't kill the Sloggoth on his own just yet, so I'm going to try and take out some Vindictors. 13 attacks on the Gut Rippers, hitting on 4s. We've got the -1 to hit, but that's counteracted by the +1 from the Kruleboyz. And 5 pluses do mortal wounds because of the poison. That's 1 regular hit and 5 mortal wounds. And that wounds on a 4, that does not wound.
So 5 mortal wounds takes out 2.5. Then I've got Gardus. The Gut Rippers are already taking a battle shock test with -3 penalty, so he's going to attack the Sloggoth, see if I can get some wounds on it. 6 attacks, since he's using his ability, hitting on 4s because it's shadowy. So he gets 1 hit, wounds on a 3. There's a wound, -1.
Yeah, so 5 plus armour for the Sloggoth. No, takes 2 damage.
It's down to 10.
Then the Sloggoth will pile into Gardus and attack it, put both of its weapons into him. So we'll do the Grots first, 4 attacks on 4s, getting 2, and then 4s, 1 wound from the nets.
With no rend, so a 3, he's fine.
And then the Sloggoth itself on 3s, getting 3, and 3s, getting 2.
With -1, so 4s to save. Oh, failed both, so he takes 4 damage, but he has a 5+ ward. He ignores 2, so he's down to 4 wounds.
At the end of the combat phase, the Snatcher crew gets to have a go at snatching a Stormcast, and I think he's the only one in range I could actually snatch, so I'll try and snatch him. He's got 2 wounds base, so on a 4. Yeah, snatched 1.
So the wounded Vindictor is snatched, which means the Vindictors have lost 3 this turn. With Bravery 8, we've got the banner though, so a 6 will fail. No, phew. And the Gut Rippers also lost 3.
Yep, so 2 or less is good. Ooh, that's going to be 8, so 3 more run away.
But that is the end of the battle round. Rolling off for the next one.
I won, I'm going to go first.
So on to Kruleboyz turn 3.
So Golmrog's going to give himself a poison. We'll try and cast Arcane Bolt, hitting a 5, getting a 6.
Bind. Oh, I did with a 7.
And the Sloggoth might regenerate on a 4+. Oh, it does. Regains D3 wounds, just 1, to 11. Charge phase, Golmrog's going to try and charge. Probably can't get to Gardus, but you can get into the Vindictors. Needs a half decent roll. 5, that might be enough. So that's just about enough to get him in. But I'm going to pick the Sloggoth to fight first, see if it can kill Gardus. 4 attacks from the Grots, hitting on 3s this time because the shadows have gone away, and it benefits from its own +1. So they all hit. And 4s, 1 wound.
3+, yep.
And the Sloggoth's claws on 2s, all hit. And 3s, 2 wounds.
With 4s, made 1 fail one, so 2 damage going through. With a ward of 5, takes 1. Gardus might still get to fight even if he's killed, so I'll do the Vindictors. They're both going to attack the Gut Rippers. And they won't pile in, because that might get one of them within snatching range, and I don't want that. 5 attacks, back to hitting on 3s, 6 to 2 mortal wounds. Well, just 2 mortal wounds.
Do the 2 remaining Gut Rippers. They're going to attack Gardus to see if I can pick off another couple of wounds off him. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s because of the Kruleboyz, and 6s do mortal wounds because their poison's worn off. Well, that's 2 mortal wounds and a hit. Hit wounds on a 4, it does.
3+, oh no, that goes through as well. So 3 wounds, so he does have to make at least one of these ward rolls. Oh, he makes 2, takes 1. I think Gardus will attack the Sloggoth again, because he's the only thing I've really got that can do decent damage to it. So down to 5 attacks now, but hitting on 3s now. Well, still can only hit twice, and wounding on 3s, just 1.
5+ armour, made it this time. Golmrog will pile in like that. He's actually going to attack Gardus with his staff because it's got a 3-inch range. Stugit will have to fight the Vindictors. 2 attacks with his staff, hitting on 2s because of the Kruleboyz. 5s do mortal wounds instead. Good job we hit on a 2. We got 1 hit, wounds on a 3. It does. Last one.
4+, no.
D3 damage. 3.
No. Ward rolls. Oh dear, he dies.
But he might get to fight again.
But he'll get to fight again on a 2+. Yes. We'll go for the Sloggoth again. 5 attacks on 3s. That's better.
Yeah.
And 3s. 3 wounds this time.
And 5+ armour. Made 2. So it takes 2 damage. Down to 9. Gardus slain, I get a victory point, but I also have Stugit's attacks. We know how deadly he is. 2 attacks hitting on 3s. 5 pluses do mortal wounds. There's a mortal wound to the Vindictors.
So yeah, we'll keep track of the victory point for killing Gardus now, even though it's not technically applied until the end of the game, so you can see what the progress of the game is, and we'll be on to Stormcast turn 3. And there's a battle shock test for the Gut Rippers, who are fine, because they lost 1.
Yeah.
Try and cast Arcane Bolt again, getting it with a 10.
Trying to bind, not with a 4.
I think the Sloggoth is the closest now, so D3 mortal wounds, 3. It's down to 6. So Vindictors are going to stay in melee. The Knight Arcanum has moved up, and then onto the charge phase, she will charge. And she's in. Oh, with that mighty 10-inch charge, she's actually going to go all the way around and fight the Shaman over here, rather than face off against the Sloggoth, even though it might regenerate, because it'll probably just maul her. But then she will survive, so I'm going to pick the Vindictors to fight first. And they're going to attack the Gutrippers. 3s, 6s do mortal wounds. No mortal wounds. 3 hits that wound on 3s.
3 6+ armour saves. Nope, just down to the boss on 1 wound. I'll do the Shaman then. Now he'll attack the Vindictors. 2 attacks on 2s, 5s do mortal wounds instead. 2d3 mortal wounds for 3.
That's enough to kill them. The Knight Arcanum will pile in round the corner, trying to get towards the Kruleboyz territory basically. So stand in that and survive to the end of the game, I think. And attack the Shaman, obviously. 3 attacks on 3s, well, they all hit. Wound on 4s. 2 wounds.
6+ armour for the Shaman. Nope.
2d3 damage. 3.
Down to 3. Murkai's got the last of the Storm Chasers, so the Gut Rippers can pile in and attack the Knight Arcanum as well. 3 attacks on 3s, 6s do mortal wounds. That's just 2 hits. Wounding on 4s, getting 2 wounds.
3s to save. Oh, she takes 2 wounds. She's down to 4.
And Murkai, the last of the Storm Chasers, has to make a Battleshock test. He runs away.
I did get a victory point due to a failed Battleshock test there, but otherwise it's 2-1 in favour of the Kruleboyz. And we're rolling off for battle round 4.
I won the roll-off, so I'm going to go first.
On to Kruleboyz turn 4.
Arcane Bolt from Golmrog. Get an 8.
Unbind? Nope.
D3 mortal wounds to the Knight Arcanum. 3.
She's down to 1.
Sloggoth regenerates on a 4+. Yes. D3. 1. Up to 7. Sloggoth could make it. Well, he could get to the Stormcast territory, but I think we're just going to go for it and try and kill everything. It's going to try and charge. It's in with a 6. I'll do the Shaman first, because he's more likely to die if the Knight Arcanum attacks him. 2 attacks with his staff on 2s, 6s do mortal wounds instead. Oh, there's D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, she's only got 1 left, so she's killed. So with only 2 Kruleboyz units left on the battlefield, obviously the result is not in doubt. There'll be 3 victory points to the Kruleboyz, possibly even more if they run into the Stormcast territory, not that that matters at this point. So it'll be a Kruleboyz victory, and we'll recap the game for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 21 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. How did you think that went?
I think it's a really good showcase of the Sloggoth, although I think it's more bad rolls from the Stormcast rather than any cunning on my part that led to victory. But I think winning priority at some key points as well helped out.
Basically, yeah, the Vindictors and Gardus, their first 11 attacks from both units got 5 wounds in total, I think. Like 6 hits out of 22 attacks between them. I mean, sure, they were all -1 to hit because of the shadows at the time, but I think the roll was mostly 1s and 2s anyways for them, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah, and Gardus generally had a bad time of it.
Yes, he only sort of woke up when he got clobbered and suddenly realised he needed to do something before he got sent back to Aesir, but never mind.
I probably got lucky on, like, Golmrog just doing 2d3 mortal wounds. Yeah, I'm sure most of my damage in these games is coming from mortal wounds.
I managed to kill off a few of the Gut Rippers before they got to do many poisoned attacks, but they still did reasonably well. But yeah, the Sloggoth was kind of scary. I suddenly realised about halfway through the game that the only person who could really deal any decent damage to it was Gardus. Even then, it still regenerates, which is a bit of a pain.
It's nice to have a pretty tanky unit for the Kruleboyz now. Well, it's not super tough, I suppose, with only a 4+ save, but if it's really focused down, it probably won't last too long. But yeah, with the regeneration, and the thing is, it was only fighting one thing at a time. Although I would have expected Gardus to do more damage to it. He probably could take it one-on-one, because its damage output's not too great. It's pretty much as effective as a killer boss, I suppose. It hits more often, because it benefits from its aura, but it doesn't have venom-encrusted weapons, unfortunately.
Yeah, if I'd be able to get both of my main units fighting it at once and attacked, I could have taken some decent chunks out of it, but as it was, Gardus had to sort of hold it up while the Vindictors tackled the Gut Rippers. Sure, it was down to about half wounds at the end, but that doesn't matter with this thing because it doesn't have a degrading profile or anything.
The regeneration's not super reliable, but it's nice to have at the very least.
It's reasonably scary in melee, especially in a smaller game, but the main reason you bring it is for the huge range of +1 to hit on melee attacks.
An 18-inch aura is absolutely huge, and it actually affects all friendly models as well, which even means it affects non-Kruleboyz units. So when we get Gloomspike kits in the upcoming episodes, it will benefit them. And +1 to hit in such a huge area is a huge force multiplier.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time before we get to choose our own armies, but I suspect this will be making a frequent appearance once we do.
And I mean, the snatching crew ability is amusing. Kind of funny that it worked before the cunning crew did, even though they're better at it. It's not super reliable. Actually, a lot of things in Age of Sigmar, even basic infantry for a lot of factions, have 2 wounds, and generally 1 wound infantry isn't that big of a problem. The neat thing about the snatcher crew is you can target the model you want to remove with it, and you could potentially cause some problems with cohesion once we learn about that. I mean, getting rid of a Vindictor Prime, that's still getting rid of 3 attacks coming at you, so I mean, it certainly fits into the Kruleboyz character. And it's a really cool model, and it's actually got a fair few options if you want to do. You've got the 2 of the crew, you can either give them the grabber and net and or chains, and the head on the Sloggoth has 2 options as well, so you could actually get a fair amount of variety out of the same kit, which isn't always the case with these sort of things. And I suppose if you really wanted to, you could even position the crew in different ways. If you just, they have little knob holes for them to slot in, but you could just cut that knob off and orient them how you wanted to. Yeah, it just looks really cool and orky. All the spikes and the crew design.
Yeah, and it fits the Kruleboyz as well, sort of very evil looking, well, it's basically a swamp Trolloth, which they then strap a howdah to the back of. Yeah, and I guess its rules fit with them as well. Being, +1 to hit is quite sneaky.
Yeah, and I don't think you could ever find a grot model that isn't characterful. The drummer looks like he's having the time of his life on the back there.
As a grot's life goes, standing on top of a big savage beast and prodding people from a long distance away is probably a good deal compared to, say, standing in the front line or being sat on or something. And also worth mentioning as the saving on it as well, because it's not a push-together model, so it's actually a little bit more expensive than it usually is. I think it's about £35 on the Games Workshop store. So, yeah, getting it over 2 issues for £18 is pretty good. And then obviously we've started learning the core rules. We will learn more of them, more coming through fairly soon, I imagine. And I don't think there's going to be anything dramatically new, but it will be going over things in more technical detail and introducing all that sort of thing. So we look forward to that because games will start to become a bit more intricate, probably, as well.
I'm glad that we, hopefully, more battle plans will include objectives like this, because it's generally more interesting to have some objective rather than just doing a death match.
Yes, and actually the Realm of Shadow is one that gets a bit less of the attention, I think, so it's kind of nice to just have, it'll be the next 20 issues we expect will be set here. We're using this board, and then probably the 2 battle mats now joined together on the desert side as well, so we'll probably get some bigger games now that we've got a second battle mat. But anyway, I think that's it for this video, so let us know what you thought in the comments below. Let us know if you like the Sloggoth model, if you're a Kruleboyz player, let us know if you use these. Do you use one or multiple? Weave in the Tabletop donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.